just take some time to get to know yourself.
Yes.
Don't listen to other people's bullshit, because there is so much out there. And I've done it. It's so easy to get swept along with things sometimes and think you should be doing this, you should be posting. Look, the things that have happened in my life, the amazing opportunities have come when I have stopped listening to all that noise and I've just been true to what I believe and spoken the way that I speak, however I speak here, I speak every day and everywhere else.
Yeah.
When you do that, you can't go wrong because you're being you.
Amy Polly, welcome to the Purpose-Led Leadership Podcast. Delighted to have you on the show. We've met a couple of times at various parties, but to have you on my show is an honour.
Thank you.
For those that don't know you, who is Amy Polly?
Oh, where shall I start? So I am a mum to a 5-year-old, nearly 6-year-old. I am a mindfulness teacher and international TEDx speaker. I can say that now.
Yeah, amazing.
And I go into organisations, talk about mental health, well-being, workplace well-being, and mindfulness really is my passion, but how that fits in with the whole mental health landscape, particularly in the workplace. And I just love talking and standing up in front of people talking.
I love your personality, and people, I think on LinkedIn, you know, we can see your vivacious kind of charm and charisma, which is, I want to talk to you about that. And the TEDx thing is awesome, by the way. I want to delve into that. But you don't just end up doing mental health, mindfulness. Talk to us about how you've arrived. Paint us a picture of your journey since school.
Oh my goodness. Do you know what? I was thinking about this on the way here because I was wondering at what point in time you were going to ask me to think about. And like, school was actually quite hard for me. I think because, I am a born optimist. Like, I just am. I was born that way.
Yeah.
In my TED talk, I talk about my concept of funfulness, and I talk about the fact that I am a positive person.
Yeah.
I do think events of life can change that, but I was born that way. And so even through the toughest times, I always feel like I've found the light and the happiness because I'm wired that way. Now, I do also think that my close family and particularly my mum have helped with that. And she heard me on a podcast once talking about my childhood, teenage years particularly.
Yeah.
Like, they were really difficult. I always knew I was a bit different and a bit loud and excitable. Obviously, I've since found out I've got ADHD, so I am different. And when she heard me on a podcast, she heard me saying that I didn't really have any friends at school. And I did stuff. I was in the Air Cadets. I'm a marksman. I got to shoot guns and fly planes. And that was amazing.
Okay.
And when she heard that, she said to me that made me really sad, Amy. And I said, why are you sad? And she said, because you're saying you didn't have any friends. You did have friends. I was like, no, let's think about this. At the weekends, really, I was with you, my brother, my dad, or I was at my nanny and granddad's house.
Right.
But I was cool with that. I didn't mind.
Yeah.
And I sort of flitted between friends and stuff, and I was bullied. I remember one time I was walking out of town on my own at lunchtime, so I was often on my own, and someone tapped me on the shoulder and stopped me. I was making me emotional. I didn't think I was getting emotional. And I had a sanitary towel stuck in the hood of my coat that someone had drawn some red felt tip on. And that's sort of what it was like. But I was always really happy. But those little things like that were really sticking it. And it was, it was so horrible, quickly whipping that off your hood. And then I remember I just called in to see my mum, brave face on and whatever, and it was okay.
What do you mean they drew felt tip on it?
Yeah, like red felt tip on a sanitary towel, so it looked like there was
so
blood
they were
on
just
it.
trying to mimic you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this emotional part of Amy, why do you think you're so emotional?
I think I just feel a bit like that's just not very nice, is it? And I sort of handled it by myself, I think, a little bit. But don't get me wrong, I don't.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
No, it doesn't faze me at all.
I love that side of you.
But there's still that emotion in me because that is a horrible thing to happen.
Yeah.
But my point is, I'm cool about it. Even at the time, it was really fucking horrible.
Yeah, of course it was.
But I just sort of got on with it. And I think that is something about the way that I'm wired and just the way that I am able to find that light. And I talk about it in my TED talk because I grew up with a granddad addicted to alcohol.
Right, okay.
Part of the reason that I wouldn't, not put on my mum, my goodness, she's always there for me, but I didn't want to mention to my mum that maybe I was being bullied or things weren't very nice at school,
Yeah.
is because I knew from a very, very, very young age that she was dealing with that.
Yeah.
So I was always the one that was like bringing the fun, bringing the laughter. I feel like a lot of people would want to label that and say that I was masking or something, but I wasn't. That was just how I coped with it. I don't feel like I've buried anything.
No, right.
That is just what I did. And I've always been that person. I found an old yearbook the other day.
Did you?
You know, when you draw a picture of yourself. Do you know what my drawing is of me? It's a jester, you know, with a Joker's like hat on with the bells on the end. Isn't that so interesting? That I forgot all about that.
No, because there's this thing about sort of toxic positivity. You can be too positive. And I want to get your lens on that, because I think that the world needs more people like you with the attitude of kind of, obviously you need to be real, but the attitude of actually, compared to most people, we are pretty lucky and pretty well off, right?
Yep. And the thing is, I don't like the phrase toxic positivity, because I think it makes people feel like you're not allowed to be okay if something shit happened, or you're not allowed to find the positive in a really difficult situation. Why not? I'm not saying bury things. Mindfulness is literally about being aware and being present with what's going on. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what's going on is really, really horrible. But I also think that we should be able to flip our mindset, if that's helpful, to be able to look for the positive things. I don't think that's toxic. It is if you're burying something, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're aware of what's going on, you honour the feelings in the moment, and then you're able to be positive. I don't think that's toxic.
No, I agree with that. So going back to this kind of friendship stuff, what was your relationship like with your parents, and the lack of friends? How do you think that has actually affected you?
I feel like I understand why it happened, because I wasn't being myself when I was younger. I was trying to fit in, I think.
Okay.
And so that's never really going to work.
Why
were
you different to other people then? Or
yeah.
In what way though?
Excitable, loud, always a bit, bright, and I know I've always seen things differently to other people. Yeah, I remember once, like do you know what? Sorry, my mind is like flitting around all these things. I would love to ask who I thought was one of the popular girls at school. I'd love to ask them if in that moment I perceived them as being the happiest people, and that they had everything together, they were popular. I wonder if they actually were. Because it's interesting, isn't it, to think about.
I think that's right, because if you look at some social media, if on the face of it, people seem happy, but the reality often isn't the case.
And I think
sometimes people do put these masks on, don't they?
Yeah. And I remember once trying to fit in with that crowd and be mean to somebody. I remember it vividly because I only did it once. I always tried to be nice, but you know how like often the mean girls were the more popular girls. I remember once there was one girl that was like a bit smaller than me, and I tipped her off a chair. I felt terrible for a bloody ages afterwards. Never did it again. It didn't get me in with that crowd anyway.
No.
So I felt like a bit of a loner. The Air Cadets was really good because I was part of something. But you asked me about my relationship with my parents. They're my best friends. I don't care how sad that sounds. My mum is my best friend now. Beautiful. She's coming out for my birthday on Saturday during the day with me and the girls.
So do you think that obviously at school kids can be mean, and they don't necessarily know they haven't got the life skills, but your kind of positive, happy-go-lucky kind of nature later in life, do you think you've been taken advantage of, or you've attracted people that can sort of almost bully you in a way as well?
I think what I was just going to mention about not having friends when you were younger, thinking about now that I'm older, and I was saying about not being myself when I was younger. I feel like I'm really myself now, and that has come from a lot of work on my part to understand myself, look after my own mental health. Lots of really tough romantic relationships, but I feel like now my friends are my friends because they accept me for who I am. I'm really confident to just be me, and I actually think that's quite a beautiful thing. I don't have to pretend to be anybody I'm not because I've got friends from school, because I haven't got any friends from school. And so now I feel like I've finally found my people, and I know a lot of people have friends from school, but maybe some don't. And I just don't think it matters. No. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, I forgot what your question was.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was going to say, you mentioned the tough relationships. My question was about
being taken advantage of now when you're older, or bullied when you're older. Is that what you mean? Yeah. I think my in-between phase, I feel like now I'm better at spotting it, because definitely I think you're right. Being taken advantage of, or people being a little bit mean, I'd often just be like, oh well, it's okay. So I think there's a bit of an in-between phase, maybe in like my late 20s, of romantic relationships were really not
Talk to us about
good
that.
sometimes. A couple of abusive relationships.
Physical, emotional?
Both.
Really?
Yeah. That was when I was a teenager. So from about 17, obviously not having any friends, to then getting a boyfriend who was really popular. And that was like so exciting.
Yeah.
But that was not good. We had a conversation on Facebook years later when I said to him, you do realise what happened was not okay. And he apologised. And I found
well
a lot
done
of peace with that.
for doing that. But at the time, what did you feel that, how did it make you feel at the time?
Do you know what? I think I was just so all right with being with that crowd and feeling like I had somewhere to be on a Friday and Saturday night. Do you know what I mean? It sounds a bit sad, but I was sort of all right. It did get to the point where when it started to get physical, and my parents definitely knew something wasn't right. I remember my dad came around and banged on the door once because he was like, "Get home now," because I wasn't allowed to stay over. Anyway, it culminated with he threw his phone at my car, cracked the windscreen, and that was the point. As soon as you affect my relationship with my parents, game over. You can do anything to me, but my dad bought me that car. Cheap little Fiat Uno banger. Loved it. He bought me that car. He cracked my windscreen. That was it. Game over.
Psychologically, though, you cried just a moment ago a little bit about the bullying with the sanitary towel, and then you've just described what happened with that partner of yours, which is obviously horrific. Which of those two instances, it seems as if the first one was almost, in a way, done more damage to you? I don't know. Or am I completely off there?
Yeah, no, I think I don't think there's no, I don't feel like there's any damage. I feel like it taught me some really important life lessons about not being taken advantage of, what is wrong and right. Of course, do I wish those things didn't happen to me because at the time they were horrible? Yeah. But I think the reason I got tearful about that is because it's almost like when there's more than one person against you and you really feel like you don't fit in, that whole sanitary towel thing was almost like you're not fitting into something. You feel like such an outsider. There's still a little bit of emotion there. But with that relationship, I think because I put that to bed, we had a bit of a conversation. He apologised. I suppose, that's a bit more.
I see what you mean. I think there's a lot to be said for feeling part of something, being part of a community, being accepted and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. By the way, I have never spoken about this stuff like out loud. You've just got it all. Yeah.
Well, this is what it's about. It's about purpose. It's about having these real conversations with people. And I think sometimes people gloss over stuff, and we've all been through shit. With moving on to the kind of the mental health side of things, I think that you would concur with this. We've all got some form of mental health going on, right?
Yeah, and it's I was talking about this on a podcast yesterday, actually. The whole mental health phrase, I think we need to really sit down and think about how we're talking about it, because it comes with so many connotations. We all have mental health all of the time. Mental and physical health is just health. We've all got health all of the time.
100%.
People aren't going through periods of mental health. It's just a little bugbear of mine, so I have to say it out loud because I think it's important. I'm not one who's like politically correct, getting hung up on language, but I think language is important.
Yes.
So we don't go through periods of mental health. We've all got mental health all of the time.
Ongoing.
What I describe it as, which is a little thing that I've coined and it'll show our age when you hear it, is mental health in betweeners.
Right.
So I always go, that. Mental health friend.
Yeah.
It's the younger audience might not get that, I don't know. But I feel like mental health in betweeners is what a lot of us are. You don't have to have that specific trauma, that specific diagnosis.
Yeah.
You don't have to have had mental ill health, but you have probably been through periods of poor mental health.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are really peachy, and it's that roller coaster of living in between the good and the not so good. Does that make sense? Does, I think that's where a lot of us are.
Yeah, I think I've likened it to, I've done loads of psychology, and there's a guy called Carl Jung, and it's a bit like, almost like an American football game where you've got two end zones. One's when you're really depressed and one's when you're really high, and you're always moving from one to the other, and where you want to be is in the middle. But I think it just comes and goes. Sometimes it's unpredictable. Sometimes you don't know when it's going to happen or why it's going to happen. Sometimes you try to sort of, why am I feeling like this? And sometimes you don't need a bloody reason. It just is. It just the way it is.
Yeah. And especially, I have to say, as a woman and trying to understand hormones, I was just having this conversation last night with one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't quite, it's like you said, sometimes you can't quite put your finger on it. Now, I am all for trying to put your finger on it, trying to figure things out. But sometimes you can't. And I did say to her, like, what time of the month is it? Because I know that affects me sometimes. You just can't put your finger on it. But it's okay to, I think we're so quick to want to be happy all of the time. But Nobody's happy all of the time.
No.
I think it's about how we manage those dips to make so that they don't dip to a place where we struggle to come back from.
Yeah, I mean, I've done lots of stuff on this. I'm a mental health first aider as well, and I've been very open and vocal about my own mental health challenges. What advice or tips would you give? And I always caveat to say that any advice and tips that you or I give, they are personal and from personal experience, and it's not always a one size fits all thing, is it? As you know.
Yeah, there's so many nuances with things, and there's going to be things that affect everybody differently.
Yeah.
Look, the reason I'm so passionate about mindfulness is because my mum has really struggled with depression. My granddad was addicted to alcohol. I've had my own challenges with post-natal anxiety. Like you say, we've all been through, I think.
Yeah.
Mindfulness was the one thing that, number one, helped me to sleep better. And I think sleep greatly impacts our well-being. It helped me to sleep better. And then when I started to practice more, I started to see these shifts. And it's like, you know, when you find something that really works, you can't not share it with people because you feel like you're keeping like this secret.
So I do mindfulness, but I don't profess to be at your level. Give us some advice or detail around what you think mindfulness is and how can, you know, the average person start with that?
Yeah, so there's so much bullshit on social media around mindfulness. I say it every time I speak. I say it in most of my talks. One post that I saw once said something like, when you are present, there are no problems, only peace. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. Sometimes you're present and there's problems. Sometimes you're present and it's like really
not straightforward as that, is it? No.
So the reason that I do what I do is because I really am trying to bust those misconceptions around mindfulness. Mindfulness isn't meditation. It is not just meditation. Mindfulness means awareness. It means attention. You are aware all of the time. You can't not be aware. Try to stop being aware of the chair that you're sitting in. Try to stop being aware of the room around you. You can't do it, right? That attention is pulled in so many different directions. We're so distracted. Often it's within our own head, but also phones and social media and work and everything else. Mindfulness is simply the practice of choosing where you put that attention. Now, we start by doing that with something like breathing, because the more that you do that, the more it exercises your brain. This is me doing it in non-scientific terms so that people don't think it's woo-woo.
Yeah.
It engages a different part of your brain. And the more that you do that by focusing on your breath or the things around you, on what you're eating or brushing your teeth, whatever it is, the easier it becomes to do that in a moment where the shit hits the fan or things don't feel good. You're able to go, hang on a minute, where am I at? Where is my awareness? Where's my attention? Where are my thoughts? And mindfulness isn't about just meditation. Mindfulness can be practiced every single day when you're eating your lunch. It's not this thing you need to carve out 20 minutes to do. You can do it when you're brushing your teeth. It's about paying attention to what you're doing. Use your senses to be present. It engages your prefrontal cortex. It's the rational part of your brain. You need that when the shit hits the fan and things aren't okay.
No, I've been asked quite a few times, so Chris, what happens when you're really in this shit with the depression and all the anxiety? And I think it is literally how you're beautifully articulating there. It's starting off small, doing a really small thing. It might just be brushing your teeth. Sounds silly, putting your shoes on, going for a walk. It's kind of like trying to take your mind away from this big, grandiose, catastrophizing thing you're thinking about and go, if I can just do that now, then
small
that's
steps,
okay.
Small moments, they soon add up. And, you know, I volunteered for my local mental health charity. I was socially prescribed by doctors for certain people. They might have other treatments. I'm not saying it's the only treatment, but doctors socially prescribe things like mindfulness for people. So I supported people through grief, social anxiety disorder, baby loss, lots of different things. And I've not just seen it happen for me or my mum or my mates. I've seen it happen for people that have been through some really tough times. It really can help. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all.
No.
I'm just saying that in all this talk of mental health, which there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of sharing of stories, there's a lot of raising awareness, which of course I totally agree with. But I think I did a post on LinkedIn about it just this week. It's like, and what? So
totally
what?
Agree with
now
that.
What? And for me, of course I'd say this, but mindfulness is the so what, now what? Because it's something you can do. You can do.
And as you say, you can do it driving in a taxi, eating, it's not something that you have to pay for. You can do it.
Driving's a really good one. I remember when I was in another not so good relationship, my thoughts used to run away with me, particularly when I was driving, because you are on autopilot. So your thoughts can be here, there and everywhere. And I started to, obviously I was learning about mindfulness. I started to practice labeling the things I could see, honestly, like a stop sign, the green grass, a red car, whatever it was, because it just takes you out of that thinking mind just to what's in front of you. And it's really funny because then I learned, someone told me, I was talking about that, and someone said to me, you do that when you do driver awareness course after you've been like done speeding or whatever. They do that with you, and I was like, how interesting. And that's to make sure obviously you're being present with what you're doing, driving.
Absolutely, because I'm a good friend with Steve Ware, probably him, and he's great at this mindfulness stuff. We've had conversations about our thoughts not being our thoughts. What would you say to that? Our thoughts aren't necessarily true or real.
Of course, you could think the most disgusting thing in the world. It literally doesn't mean anything.
It's amazing what goes on in people's minds.
But I think that's one of the things, right? You could think the most horrific thing and what? It literally doesn't mean anything. And, I take people through courses, and it's always interesting when we start having those conversations about like, where does your mind go? And your thoughts are literally just thoughts.
So what I mean is not necessarily your thoughts, that they're brought in from various different content or whatever. It kind of like,
they're not the essence of you.
No.
And we are so influenced by so many different things. I think one of the biggest things that, it sounds so wanky, I know, when you say like my mindfulness journey, but I have been on a journey. But it's that learning about yourself. And I think, like we were talking about friendships and stuff, I do feel like I'm a lot more confident in myself because I know myself. I know when I'm a twat.
Well, you're bold, you're pink, you're all this kind of stuff. You've got these big fucking hats and dresses on. It's like, that's Amy. We know it's you. Has that always been the case, or have you sort of
Yeah, pretty much. There will be a period of time, probably teenage years, where you do maybe try and be a bit less sticking out like a sore thumb, but I was never very good at it, because even then I remember when I must have been getting on for, it was sort of the age where you're obviously, back in the day we went to the pub before you were supposed to go to the pub. I remember everybody had Adidas or Kappa tracksuits. So everybody had navy blue or the black ones with either the white stripe or the red and blue stripes. Not me. No. I had a fucking illuminous orange Adidas jacket with the illuminous orange stripes down. So I just sort of can't help it. And I remember my friend was like, if we're going to the pub, Amy, you better take that jacket off. I was like, okay.
That's amazing. So relationships, I mean, I can relate to this. I mean, the first 3 or 4 relationships that I had were horrendous in my life. I attracted the wrong people, they were abusive. And I think that was due to a lot of childhood trauma, and kind of like now I wouldn't accept anything less than my own standards, but it's taken me a long time to get there. Talk to us about that, because you mentioned it a few times. You've been in a few different difficult relationships. Yeah,
and exactly the same. There's no way that I would put up with any of that shit now. And when I look back, I think, oh my goodness. But do you know what? All of this time of understanding myself and looking back over things, I still haven't quite unpicked that. I've been to therapy. I've been to talking therapy. I've had RTT, rapid transformation therapy. Really good. That was after I'd had my little one. And I still haven't quite got to the crux of why those relationships happen. But I think that, and you'll probably agree, when you don't know yourself, I don't think there's one thing that created this. It's not like I was, people try to unpick things, don't they? I don't think there was something, I just think that when you don't know yourself, or perhaps you don't have a strong sense of self-worth, then you do accept situations and behaviour that...
I think so. This is what led me to kind of being a bit more spiritual and kind of believing into higher powers. I do believe that you do attract energy that you are, and I think that's what's happened to me. You know, when I didn't believe in myself, when I thought I was this, that, and the other, I attracted people that said and believed and made me feel that as well. And now, what's your take on kind of this kind of this universe energy, kind of like, people call it woo-woo, but I do think that a positive mind tends to lead to positive situations, and I think you'd agree with that.
100%. Oh, I'm full woo. I don't care. You can call it woo. But the thing is, look, people will label it woo-woo because you can't necessarily put a label on it, or you can't back it up by science, although there is a lot of science around energy and vibrations and things like that. I remember, having a conversation with Mo Gaudat over lunch,
brilliant,
and I said to him, I went, I've been writing my TED talk. And he went, you've got a TED talk? And I went, No, I just know that I will do one day. So I thought I'd better start putting a few ideas down. And he sort of went, okay, and that was that. 2 weeks later, I'm texting him, you'll never guess what.
No way.
2 weeks later.
So what happened? They just contacted you or what?
Yeah, they asked me to do it.
I mean, I've always wanted to do that. I mean, I've got to say, massive congratulations to you. How did that go?
One of the best days of my life so far.
Were you nervous?
My bowels would probably tell you that I was nervous. But I don't feel like, if you'd asked me, I wasn't particularly nervous. I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing. I was so excited because what I was talking about comes from my heart. I'm so passionate about it. And I know what a privilege it is to be up there. So I was just so happy. And I've never been married. I don't think I'll get married. And I feel like it was a bit like a wedding day because it's like your centre of attention. And then all your best mates are there. Well, my best mates were all there on the front row, all shouting, "We love you, Amy Polly."
No way.
Yeah, it was the best day.
So you literally manifested that, would you say?
Yeah, quite a few things. That same year, I think I must have just been like on the complete right wavelength for manifesting, because that same year I'd said a couple of months before that I'd like an international speaking gig, and I got that year as well.
I think it's one of those where, like, I think manifestation is very valid, but it's one of those you put it out there and then you leave it. You don't worry about the outcome.
Oh no! I never knew how I was going to get a TED. Well, obviously there's applications, but I hadn't seen any applications. And then I was asked to do it. But it's the same with sort of that international speaking gig, for an example. I'd put it out there. I really wanted that, but you can't sort of make that happen necessarily. No. But what I did was I was out there on podcasts. So I was putting myself out there. I was, I guess, showing myself as a speaker. I was taking opportunities. I was networking, and those people contacted me because I'm active online. I put myself out there.
So when you say you wouldn't get married, why is that?
It's not that I wouldn't. I'm with someone now. But I don't know. I'm not too bothered about it.
I'm the same. I've been married. I think it's different strokes for different folks, isn't it? But I don't.
I believe in marriage. I don't think I'd say no. I just feel like it's not a necessity. Whatever. I don't know. I feel like I'm just at a point in life where I'm cool with whatever. I'm happy. So that's all that matters.
What does your current partner bring you in your life then, would you say?
Oh my God, he's so lovely, bless him. We did split up for a bit, for about 3 months, but I think that was probably good for us because you can so easily get into a rut. And I refuse to be in a rut now. I'm getting too old and I've been through too much. But yeah, so my little one's dad, we split up after COVID, and we're like really good friends, really amicable.
Yeah, got you.
People say that like we've done really well and whatever, and I feel like we have done really well. Jackson's our priority and we manage that, so we do a week on, a week off co-parenting.
Oh, that's good.
And then now my partner, he just accepts me for who I am in all my quirks and ridiculousness, and I think that he gives me a little bit of that stability and anchoring, which I am very easy to not have in my life. Like I literally have lived out of a suitcase for so long just because I like being here, there and everywhere. And
I think what I get about you is acceptance. When you said your ridiculousness, people can laugh about that, but I think it's a really powerful position to be in, where you kind of accept who you are and you're not going to change that, because you probably know that you are ridiculous at times, but that's just Amy. And I think, I don't know, when you get to that stage, it must be quite liberating.
Yeah. And the thing is, right, I'm not perfect, goodness, far from it, but no matter how much of a knob I am sometimes, as in terms of that ridiculousness and stuff, I really try to be a good person. And I haven't always been, and we've all done stupid shit and stuff like that. But I think that I really try to be a good person. If I did something that upset someone, I'd want to apologise. I really try to be thoughtful of others. Like, I fucking love people. I love humans. It's why I do what I do. And so I feel like if I'm just being me and doing my thing, and I'm not hurting anyone. And
So I mean, I've been in scrapes. I've been arrested. I've done some fucking stupid things. What about you?
I feel like I might have done, but I feel like I never got caught. I say that to my mum.
Go on, tell us something.
I can't think of anything, honestly. I was trying to think about that when I was like younger. I think I actually do things somewhere in there. I just like that line of, I like to push it a little bit, but I sort of don't overstep it, because if I'm truthful, because my main thing is I want my parents to be proud of me. Now I'd like my son to be proud of me. And
of course,
my brother was always the naughtiest one. So I got overshadowed by him a little bit. So, like shoplifting some sweets when you're younger. no one really gave a sod about. So I don't think I've
No.
really done anything.
Well, I mean, going back to the emotional point, I mean, I see myself as a fairly emotionally intelligent person. I've got my faults as well, but I get quite emotional and upset when people are quite disingenuous to me or they're being unfair. What makes you cry? What upsets you these days?
Yeah, that for me, especially I think, and I don't know, I feel like you'll get this, being online, especially LinkedIn and chatting to people online or seeing people's personas online. And then it's happened a couple of times and you meet them in real life and it's like, it actually sort of hurts your heart a little bit because they're either dismissive or rude. And you just think, that's not what I expected. Like one of the best compliments I ever had was someone said to me, oh, you're just like you are on LinkedIn. And I was like, thank fuck for that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And like that for me, and especially I think like sometimes I think to myself, I can handle that. Like, I just think whatever, it's not nice, it hurts, but I don't like it when people are rude to other people. That's mainly when I think I'd get myself in trouble because I want to step in to
Have you had any
others.
examples where you've been done over by somebody or someone's been done over and how have you responded to that?
No, I think I've made some bad investments in my business, into certain coaches and courses and things like that. But that's not personal. They're doing their thing. And I probably was quite naive. I feel like a couple of things that have happened recently that have been amazing, such as like the TED Talk or being on certain podcasts and stuff. People try to befriend you because they want to get
something from you
or that contact. But I feel like I'm being a bit more aware of it now. So I'm really sorry I don't have any stories of like being taken advantage of. I think that I've taken things quite slow with my business. I think that I've focused more on my lifestyle than making the money. So I feel like I've made bad decisions in some of my investments, but I don't think that I've been taken advantage of.
Well, that's a great thing. Don't apologise. I think it's brilliant. So moving towards the tech, the TEDx stuff and the Jack stuff as well. What was your TEDx talk about? And also this Just Ask a Question platform is bloody phenomenal. I met John and Danny. They're great guys, aren't they? Talk about that.
Amazing. So my TEDx was about funfulness. I was in a conversation with someone the other day and I said mindfulness needs a rebrand, and that's sort of how I came up with the concept of funfulness. It was also because and I mentioned this in my TED Talk, as I said, throughout my life I feel like I've always had the ability to find the fun and the joy even through the tough times, because it was a little bit like my job when things weren't so good with my granddad or whatever. I would always make people laugh. And when I went through miscarriage, it was the most physically painful and emotionally painful thing that I'd ever been through. And I just remember sitting there and that my mindfulness practice like coming into my mind, because I was really ruminating over the fact that it wasn't going to be happening. I wasn't going to be pregnant at Christmas, and I was thinking about all these things. And I said to myself, practice your mindfulness, try and be here now. And it was snowing, so I sat and I was watching the snowfall and I was doing my breathing. And then within 48 hours I was sledging down a hill and I was like, whoa. And I mentioned that in my talk because I didn't have a word for it then, but that is funfulness, the ability to be present, mindful of what's going on, but then the ability to find the fun, to shift the energy, to move your mindset. So I didn't have a word for it, now I do. I feel like I've always been like that, but now I want to teach others.
But I love that. Going down that thing and speed is exhilarating and fun. But what I've learned recently is that it doesn't have to be anything. You can sit there, and I was sitting outside on my balcony and just looking at, this is going to sound very woo, looking at the clouds and the sun. I just felt I'm happy just doing that. Just sometimes I think when you can just be happy just being. that's the golden ticket.
Yeah,
no?
Absolutely. And I think that would help so many people, especially in this modern world. We're so fast paced and we feel like we need to be on to the next thing. And we often don't look up from our phones. We just used to be able to sit and wait, but I probably didn't take a bus. But do you know what I mean? You used to be able to sit and wait for a bus or sit and wait for your mate to meet you without having to pick up your phone. Do you know what I mean?
So we talk about Just Ask a Question, Jack, but also you set up something recently called Bad Human. Is that right?
Yeah. So Just Ask a Question. I knew a friend who was part of the platform. So they got me in, and I have just bonded with so many of them. Roxy, who is at Jack, is one of my best friends now.
Oh, wow.
Me and Yoni are really close. Actually, loads of them. I just love them so much. I visit them so often. And the platform is incredible. And I'm so proud to be a part of it.
So talk to for me, it looks and feels like an Instagram thing. I've seen it as very high profile, reasonably high profile people having a voice in a video format where you can, will you tell us, what is it?
Yeah, so what I said to them when I first saw it was, this is so good because it isn't sterile and it isn't text-based. You imagine if you typed into Google, what is depression?
Absolutely.
I think Danny says it and he gives his talks. He talks about how many hits you get.
Yeah.
And then it's text-based. With Jack, if you ask that question, you get, and it's not just high-profile celebrities, it's experts in their field, it's lived experiences, it's experts, doctors, psychologists, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you actually get someone sitting there speaking to you. And it's because it's that short form video, it also plays into that modern world where, our younger generation used to TikTok and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just got everything going for it. And then you imagine having that in a workplace, which they do now, where your leaders can record conversations. And in a workplace, you can see your leaders talking about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the model behavior. That's the behavior modeling that you want to see from leadership, talking about these things. So it's just incredible. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
No, it's really good. I think it's going to go really well. And it appeals to the right people, I think. But toxic culture, workplace culture.
Bad human. Yeah. So we don't know what on earth we're going to do with that yet. We're three friends, me, Nick and Sarah, and we have both just been through many situations where we're like, things need to change, obviously. And we're spitballing. Nick said to me the other day, you're the one who came up with bad human. And I was like, oh, did I? I was saying that we all did it together. And he was like, take the credit for it.
Yeah.
But it stands for be a decent human, because I think that there's so much bollocks now about well-being and buying this and getting this app and doing this thing, and it's all good, but when it comes down to it, every talk that I do, pretty much every corporate that I go into, I end up with saying, just don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Because
that's the top and bottom of it though, really.
It is. It really is. If I think about when I was on a leadership team in the fire service, as an example, you've got lots of different people. You've got lots of different experiences. The thing that always stood out to me was that person's being a bit of a dick. They're managing lots of people. It's impacting them. There's no rocket science. It always starts
at the top though, isn't it? I think too many leaders, they kind of allow it to happen because the person's doing really well, billing wise, and I think the culture starts at the top, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you can excuse that behaviour just because, but they're doing a good job, they've done X, Y, Z. That's not an excuse to be able to treat people like shit.
How would you tackle leadership, workplace toxic culture then? If you went into a business, what do you normally suggest they do?
So the first thing is ask your people. There's so that's the thing. There's so many people sitting in a room making decisions.
But don't be afraid to get the back. You want the negative feedback. You don't want all the nice stuff, do you?
Look, if you're trying to tick a box or you're pretending or you're doing the whole lip service thing, right, fair. Well, you're not going to change anything. That's up to you. If you actually genuinely want to make a difference, listen. Ask people, go out, find out where the problems are, find out what people think, find out what people need. I'm not saying you're going to have to do everything. No. Also, I talk a lot about shared responsibility. Yeah. It's not the organisation's responsibility to make sure that you are healthy. It's the organisation's responsibility to make sure they're providing a healthy workplace. Yes. There is also a responsibility on you as an individual.
That's really true.
Same as the workplace aren't forcing food into your mouth. And when we're talking about your physical health, but they have health and safety to make sure that the workplace is safe.
This is a really balanced view because I think you're right. Because obviously I've been a CEO, I've helped other business owners, and I think that grow their business, the last sort of 10 years, it's gone from you could treat employees like shit pretty much. I know it still happens a lot, to the point where I think recently the COVID thing, where the work from home thing, there was a point in time where the employee had so much power about kind of like, I'm not coming today, all that kind of stuff. And I think that shared ownership is really important because I think some mental health is really, really, really important. I'm a strong advocate of it, but I do think some people take advantage of that and will play the mental health card when there's there's no grounds for that as well. Yeah,
but the same happens with physical health. I remember having a conversation once and someone said, oh, well, if you do that, you open the floodgates. I was like, what floodgates? I said, if someone wants to take the piss, they'll take the piss. I said, they've got a bad back. Yeah. I say, if they're hungover, they'll ring in sick. Like everyone, it's human nature. Exactly what I always say. It's human nature. If someone takes the piss, they will. You might be giving them another opportunity to do that. But that is
A lot of it is
negative view to have of your people.
Well, yeah, but a lot of it is communication as well, isn't it? I think how they communicate and what they're saying, but
Yeah.
also the measurement of it though. So if you went in there and you did that sort of survey thing, then it's, as we all know, mental health isn't a quick meeting once a month. We've done it, guys. It's an ongoing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why. Look, I don't necessarily do those bits around measure. But I mean, then again, I did it in the fire service, but it wasn't so much around. We looked at absenteeism and presenteeism and stuff like that, sick days. And then we would score with our employee engagement around, I don't like happiness because I don't think that I think happiness is a really silly thing to measure because who's happy or something, what's happy is subjective.
Do you mean contentment instead?
Yeah, feeling supported,
right.
I think is a good thing to look at.
Okay.
Not do you feel happy, do you feel supported?
So you'd be happy for like 2 minutes and then be sad again. It's just, you can't really.
And it's not really my job to make sure you're happy, but it's my job to make sure you feel supported.
I get you, because
as an organisation,
one person's happiness could be one person's sadness. You just don't know, do you?
Yeah. So I think things like that, and I think that you like you say, it's not we've bought this thing, we've done this thing, tick the box at the end. That's not what it is.
Talk to me about neurodiversity, because I had Thomas Woodhams on my podcast last week, and he is an absolute god, isn't he? ADHD, just your challenges, your struggles with it as a woman and an entrepreneur and business person, people's misinterpretation of it perhaps, and just generally that space. Yeah,
it took me a year to talk out loud about it after my diagnosis, because I bloody knew nothing about it. I was very lucky. I always say this. I was very lucky to have a GP that actually talked to me, listened to me. She suggested I had the initial assessment.
Yeah.
And a lot of GPs don't even entertain a conversation. So I know I was lucky. But I was just at the point where I was staring at a laptop screen for hours. I was signed off work from the fire service just after COVID. Obviously, I was splitting with my little one's partner, and I was really struggling. And I think that the post-natal anxiety was a big part due to the ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD at the time. But like I say, it took me a year to just learn about it, really. I didn't want to talk out about it without...
How did you feel, though, when you got diagnosed? Did you see it coming, or...?
No, when my doctor said it, I went, what? Because I'd Googled everything. Other search engines are available. Like, honestly, I'd Googled everything because I was just sat... Because I have that such strong sense of self-awareness and knowing myself, I knew I was not okay. I knew there was something that was not right. I just did not...
Like the signs of what, though? What were the sort of symptoms?
My postnatal anxiety meant that I didn't leave the house much.
Okay.
With my little one.
Yeah.
I could still stand on a stage and talk, but I couldn't leave the house with him. And then looking at my laptop for hours a day, not getting my work done. And it was just got to the point where I said to my doctor, I don't feel like something's not okay here, but I didn't feel like it was depression because I didn't feel hopelessness.
Yes.
I was still eating and sleeping and sort of thing. And then she said to me, we had a chat about my life, relationships, school and everything. And she said, I think it might be ADHD. And my reaction was, what? No, are you sure? Same as my mum's reaction when I sort of told her.
Yeah.
But then when you start to unpick it, you're like, you start to look back over your life and you go, all right, okay, this makes sense.
And for those that don't know, ADHD, is it classed as what is it classed as? Is it a disorder, disease, or?
Well, it's a neurological developmental condition. Disorders in the title. But disorder, really? And also, I don't think it's going to be a minority.
No, it's becoming very common, isn't it?
We've come to realise that we've been misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed. I think it's going to just be we all have differing brains.
But do you think it stems from anything? Like, where does it? How does it originate?
Fuck knows. No. There's too much information. I find that really overwhelming. Okay. I'm no expert in that area, and I've listened to so many different things, and I'm sure you have as well. There's things that it comes from childhood trauma. The most thing that I've seen is that it's often hereditary. Yeah. If I put money on it, I'd say my dad's got ADHD, but he's not diagnosed. But when you look at certain things.
So it's not anything like chemicals or food or anything like that. You think it's, who knows, basically.
Look, as I said, I'm not an expert, but as far as I can see, ADHD is a neurological condition that means your brain works differently. The symptoms of ADHD could present in somebody that is having a high usage of technology and social media.
Right.
Because the symptoms of ADHD, some of them are distractibility, lack of focus. Well, of course that can come from overuse of technology or what you're eating. But to say that causes ADHD, that's a very bloody big claim to go and make with a zero research if you're somebody that's doing that. Do you see what I mean?
No,
so
people have that. It could be 4 or 5% of it, and they say that's it. That's the whole reason. I think it's a combination of factors, but no one really knows. But I think you're right. I think it's becoming more common, isn't it?
Yeah, and it won't be a minority. It'll be an acceptance of the fact that we all have brains that differ. And that's why when it comes back to the workplace, so I do, just because I like talking, I think I'm good at getting things over in a different way.
Yeah, you are.
I never want to fit in on the leadership team and stuff like that. I like to say things a bit differently. So I run some sessions now around neurodiversity awareness. I've educated myself. At like quite a top level, but just to get that awareness going, to get people understanding what it is and what it isn't, and just to talk from my experience so that people can see somebody with ADHD. And so going into organisations and talking about that sort of thing, it's been wonderful because I've had people come to me and say, I disclosed my ADHD today and I hadn't dared to do so until you came and gave your talk. And I always say that if you just make it the norm that in your workplace or in your life, you ask people for their preferences, how do you like to be communicated with? How do you work best? You don't have to have ADHD for somebody to ask you that question and to have that conversation. So if we make that the norm, then it doesn't have to be this big thing you've got to disclose something. You just ask people what their preferences are. And for me, again, I think that is part of my ADHD though, that I see things sometimes as black and white and I'm going, why don't you just ask? Why don't we just talk about it? And I was like that as a leader, but that was always a positive thing in my eyes. That
I think you can. That's the thing. You can learn a lot from this disorder in terms of how to communicate, how to be a better leader. And I think just whether you've got ADHD or not, you should be communicating like that anyway. I think
that's what I think. Yeah.
Very interesting, actually. I think that what I'd like to ask you now is, what's the difference really between the Amy sitting in front of me and the old Amy, would you say?
How old?
Well, you tell us. You're 40 soon, right?
40 on Saturday.
On Saturday.
It's only a few days away now. I feel so excited about it. Me and the old Amy, I think that I have a lot more. I was always, I guess, confident. Like I always joke that when I was little, my mum always said I was sort of destined for the stage, like, and not acting, dancing, but I was always loving standing up and dancing around and putting on little shows and things like that. That's manifested into obviously speaking on stage, not performing on stage. So I've always had an element of confidence and that sort of carefreeness. But then there was always that element of maybe stifling it a little bit when I was younger because I wanted to fit in. But I think the old Amy probably worried a little bit more about what people might think, whereas I don't really worry about that too much now.
I can see that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Because I know that I'm doing things for the right reasons. If I make a mistake, I'll apologise or I'll correct myself. I think that my intentions are good and I really just fucking like being alive and I want more people to feel that. And so that's why I guess that Funfulness was created, because it makes me really sad when I see people, especially when I've seen people close to me that aren't enjoying life. Life's too short, and I think it's such like a privilege to be here right now, and we get to do all these cool things. And I just want people to,
but the average, the average person who's in depression say, that's all good and Amy, but I can't just be happy. You get those sort of types of people. I'm not labeling anybody, but there are, that does happen when you're in depression. It's like you can't just flick a switch, Amy. Come on. What do you say to that?
And I've been there. When I was going through that post-natal anxiety, I remember so vividly saying to my mum, I am not okay right now. Food was like cardboard. I was scared to leave the house. I just felt like not myself. So I completely understand that. And I'm never, ever trying to diminish that or belittle that. However, especially when I look back, over photos and videos of that time, that was my overarching thought and feeling, But when I look back at videos and pictures, there were moments where I was having real fun with my baby. And because they were such small moments, and we have a negativity bias as humans, you remember the negative a lot easier than you remember the positive.
Totally. Why is that, do you think? Sorry to interrupt you.
It's just how we're wired. That the negativity bias, scientifically, our brain I always try to describe things in a non-scientific way. A negative memory grooves a deeper carve in your brain, basically. If you've had a really good day with loads of amazing things happen, but someone cuts you up on the way home, you walk through the door and you talk about that one negative thing.
Got you. Or you've got 100 likes and 500 great comments and one bad comment. You just focus on the bad comment. It's like,
we have a negativity bias. And so the reason people talk about the fact that mindfulness does help with things like depression and anxiety is because we're not disputing the fact that we don't feel good and that it's really fucking hard and tough. However, there are probably those small glimmers that you can find, hold on to, try to be a little bit more proactive. And it doesn't have to be the big things. Like you said, sitting on your balcony, just appreciating that one moment doesn't mean that the rest of the day isn't really tough. But the more that you do that, the easier it becomes. And I think that fun is different for everybody. It doesn't have to be you're getting up, going somewhere, doing this elaborate thing. Fun might just be having a mate round and having a laugh for half an hour.
So where can you signpost people to? Because we know the first thing is to talk, but if people haven't got anybody to talk, what sort would you say, Jack, or where would you kind of take them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that's overlooked is there's a lot of local mental health charities, and lots of them have things like coffee mornings. And I know it's tough. I've literally been sat in the room where people are coming through the door or don't come through the door. And I know it's so hard to ask for help sometimes. And also, you're like, what help do I need if you don't know what's going on? But I think that we often feel like the world is so big and there's all these things that could help. But if you bring it down to a more granular level, there will be things that are local to you. And in person is always better than online. It just is that human connection. So try to have a look and see if there's anything that you can do more locally. That was honestly seeing the change in people that used to come to those coffee mornings at that mental health charity was amazing.
Yes.
Things like Jack are really good because... So it's jaaq.org, because nobody even needs to know that you're looking at that, but that might give you a little bit of guidance and help you to unpick something and then go, oh, I think this might be what I'm dealing with. Now you know what to talk to your doctor about or a friend.
So what do you still struggle with these days then?
My ADHD symptoms, for sure. As an entrepreneur, I find some elements really tough. Sticking to my own routines, really tough.
Yes.
Rejection, really tough.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
So RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, is a big part of ADHD. So when you get that rejection, that can feel like a dagger to your heart.
Seriously? Right.
Yeah. But I think that because of my mindfulness practice, and let's bear in mind, I've been practicing I was trying to figure it out the other day, like 13 years or something. Okay. Yeah. I'm quite good at noticing it. Doesn't mean that the initial thing doesn't happen, but I'm quite good at noticing it and talking myself out of it. The same as like my emotional dysregulation. Sometimes I have quite big emotions in the moment. I can get really fucking agitated sometimes. I wouldn't say I'm an angry person, but if things have piled on, I can sort of
impatient.
Oh yeah, I'm impatient. But also agitation, like angry. My fella was on his phone the other night when we'd gone away for the night, and I was like, "Can you put your fucking phone?" And I was like a bit livid, but it soon dissipates. Like it soon goes. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is for me is that I know when to apologise. Like that's I've really been a dick, so I can apologise. So I do think some of it can back down to my ADHD, and I do think that just being an entrepreneur is fucking hard. But one of my biggest things, I'd really love to do some talks about this actually, is that if you look on paper, I'm not successful. I'm pretty fucking skint, but I don't have a mortgage, so I pay a plot fee for where I live in my lodge, static caravan that's a bit fancy sort of thing. Nice. But I feel really fucking successful because I'm content. My kid's happy. Yeah. I get to do what I want when I want. Yeah. I bloody love the work that I do. Yes. And I haven't gone out and created all of these things that could potentially create income because I wanted to just do one thing at a time and have the space and the time to pick him up from school and be where I wanted to be when I wanted to be somewhere. So
I think that's a brilliant definition of success. It doesn't have to be the size of your watch, the car, the business, the followers. No. That's all really important. But success can be how you feel in your life. That's not necessarily happiness. It's contentment.
Yeah. And I look. Would I like more money in the bank because it's a bit of a headache sometimes? Does, obviously. Yeah. But I just feel like that has been the focus for so many of us for so long, like growing up, getting the job, doing the thing, Yeah. And I feel successful. I feel really fucking successful because I'm doing something that I feel hopefully helps some people in this world and leaves a little bit of a legacy. I hope funfulness becomes something.
But it's a meaning and a purpose to your life, no?
Yeah. And I'm there for my kid and I'm there for my friends. And I really like being able to get up in the morning and do cool shit like this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Great.
So I feel,
yeah,
good.
We're kind of running out of time. A couple of more quick fire questions. What's been your darkest moment, would you say?
I think the postnatal anxiety, because I'd always wanted to be a mum. Like for as long as I could remember, I'd always wanted to be a mum. Pregnancy was lovely. I absolutely loved it. And then I took my baby home and I was like, oh, what on earth is going on?
Of course,
and I never heard of postnatal anxiety. I'd heard of postnatal depression.
Right.
But I'd never heard of postnatal anxiety.
So silly
I don't
question.
know if you have.
What was you anxious about?
So it can present differently for different people. So mine was, I was anxious about leaving the house. And I still can't quite articulate it, but I think it was maybe people thinking that he wasn't okay. Part of it was that something bad was going to happen to him. A big part of it was that, that he was going to be hurt or something bad was going to happen, or he wasn't going to get fed, or I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But then I knew someone else that their postnatal anxiety was about being in the house.
Yeah.
So complete opposite.
Yeah.
So I think that was it, and ultimately I split with his dad. Would things have been different if I hadn't been there? I don't know. You don't know, do you? But it is what it is. And I said to my mum, as you know, I'm very close to my mum. And at the time, even though it was so dark, she was there for me. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have my mindfulness and my mum, honestly.
Perfect.
But I really feel like it taught me something. And I know I've said right at the beginning that I have that ability to see through that lens, but I genuinely think, there's a video of me actually on my Instagram of standing in my kitchen. I don't even look like me, where I was like upset, but I just knew in that moment, I'd already I had a bit of a presence online already, and I recorded some words. And I feel like I went through that experience because it helps me to have compassion and empathy for other people who are then going through that. So rather than going, we'll do this mindfulness practice because it will really help you, I understand how fucking hard it can be. So for someone to be able to just say that, I feel like it's helped me with my teaching.
That's beautiful, because I think what you're doing, you're harnessing your own challenges with ADHD and the anxiousness, and then almost coaching and training other people as well. And I think that's why you're good at what you're doing, because you've been through what you're teaching.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I've lived it that.
But do you think it actually helps with your relationship with your partner as well? Because you're almost teaching him a little bit how to kind of communicate, as well as not him to you, but you to him.
Yeah, both. Absolutely, 100%. And even, we were talking about the woo in the universe and stuff like that. Like, he's changed jobs a couple of times since he met me, because he was working in construction. He lives up north and he was in London a lot of the time. And it was really, like, he was really struggling with it. He's got a little one as well. And like, he was knackered and it wasn't good for quality of life.
Yeah.
And so he's changed jobs a couple of times. And he always says, like, I'm really grateful that I met you. And, I teach you. He always says that I'm like a little bit nuts with love. Yeah. But, he jokes about that. And I said, we manifested this together. And, he watches lots more video. When he first met me and I got my ADHD diagnosis, he listened to some podcasts about it to try to understand it a bit more. And now he's really interested in the mental health side of things. And he recommends Jack to his workplace and stuff like that. So, it's been really nice to have that together.
So let's talk about love quickly then. I've been in relationships where I don't think I loved the person, but I thought I did. But I now know what love is. What's your journey been with love?
Yeah, I think I thought sex was love for a long time.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah. But one of the things that I want to mention that I think is really important is my friendship love is the greatest love of my life. Now, I hope my fella's not too offended by that. I love him greatly, but my love for my friends is a connection that lifts me up, fills my heart, and I think is so overlooked, because when we say love, we automatically go to romantic relationships.
Right.
My love for my mum, my love for my kid, and my love for my friends are just as important as my romantic relationship. And actually, when we split up for a few months last year, I actually said, like, I don't need someone, like, he does add something to my life and I'm really glad we're back together, but I don't necessarily need that. I've got so much love in my life from so many different areas.
Describe the friendship love then. How does that differ to, say, a relationship love? Is there a difference? There must be.
It's so non-judgmental.
Right.
It's so accepting. It's so honest. Like, my best friends, one of my best friends, she's amazing. She's called Sam. Really wants a TED Talk. She would like to speak at TEDx Brighton, which is where I spoke. She's from Brighton.
Yeah.
And this is the love that we have. She said to me before and on the day, I'm so fucking happy for you.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I love you so much and I'm so jealous. That's love.
Yeah.
Where I can honour
Yeah.
her reality and she can honour mine. And we're all just there for each other. Whether it's snot bubbles and crying at the kitchen table.
See, that's phenomenal, because I always said that you don't need anybody to make you happy. You can be happy on your own. But now I've got friends and I've got community and that kind of stuff. But with a partner as well, you said something there that isn't disparaging to your partner. You're saying that I think a good relationship is built on your partnership, but you're also independent as well.
Yeah. 100%. We're so, we don't even live near each other. We're like an hour and 30 or 40 minutes away from each other. We don't live together. We won't be able to live together for a long time because we both have children that go to schools that are,
But you're comfortable in that situation.
Yeah,
it's
really
not like there's this pressure to go, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do that.
And you know what? I think that as you get older, you learn, don't you? I've probably had anxious attachment in the past.
Right.
But now I'm so comfortable with, he actually really loves me. And I know that he does, and vice versa. And yeah, we don't have to be in each other's pockets. That's not actually what love is. Yeah.
They do say the best friends, going back to the friendships, you don't have to see your friends. You can see them once a year and still have the same feeling.
Yeah, I've got a couple
all that
of best
kind of
friends
stuff
like
going
that.
on.
Yeah.
So before we go then, where can people find you, and what would you like to leave the audience with in terms of anyone struggling, or even someone breaking onto LinkedIn, trying to make a name for themselves? Just some parting words.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Amy Polly. Instagram, this is Amy Polly. My website is amypolly.com. Oh God, words of advice again. Fuck no, that. How does the algorithm work? Do you know what my biggest thing is? Yeah. Just take some time to get to know yourself. Yes. Don't listen to other people's bullshit, because there is so much out there. And I've done it. It's so easy to get swept along with things sometimes and think you should be doing this, you should be posting. Look, the things that have happened in my life, the amazing opportunities have come when I have stopped listening to all that noise and I've just been true to what I believe and spoken the way that I speak, however I speak here, I speak every day and everywhere else. Yeah. When you do that, you can't go wrong because you're being you.
Honestly, my best posts are the ones where I've just woken up and just literally wrote down as I thought, and it's gone viral. The ones I've spent like 4 hours crafting, I interrupted you there, but I think it just be yourself, isn't it?
It's pretty much how I always post. And by the way, again, you have to sort of caveat it. I know it's not always easy because it's a very noisy space. It's a very busy space, and it's very easy to think, oh, I need to do this to get that. But you'll never feel good about it if you've not been yourself, because then you actually have to be in front of people and do the work, and you need to be yourself. So look, just go for it. What have you got to lose?
No, absolutely.
There's so many opportunities.
Amy, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
The Purpose-Led Leadership podcast is sponsored by Orca Pay Group. We've chosen to partner with Orca Pay Group because they are an umbrella and payroll company that leads with trust and transparency. They cultivate enduring partnerships with sustainable growth. They aspire to live in a world where umbrella and payroll companies are trusted, where confidence is earned and transparency is essential. They operate as strategic partners for growth. They are pioneers of exceptional service, and they put their recruitment agency partners and their contractor experience at the heart of everything they do.